What's up, everybody? Andrew Mahone here with Tricky Jim at Full Grip Games. I've been participating in a 2017 retro format tournament hosted by PokeStats. Hopefully, you got to catch the first round I posted this week. If not, make sure to check out the description below. I'll have the first round linked. This is round 2. I play against Andrew Scott. I am playing my Drampa Zoroark deck, and he is playing Espeon GX Garbodor. Espeon Garb was a popular deck at the 2017 North American International Championships. It centers around Espeon GX, who is a big Pokemon GX with 200 HP and 3 great attacks. First attack, Psybeam for 1 Psychic Energy, deals 30 damage and inflicts confusion, which can be a pain to have to play around. Psychic for 1 Psychic and 2 Colorless does 60 damage plus 30 more damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. That can ramp up very quickly, especially with a Choice Band, dealing huge numbers to the defending Pokemon. Then Divide GX for 1 Psychic and 2 Colorless allows you to place 10 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. If you happen to have just whiffed a knockout on a big Pokemon GX, you can use Divide GX to chase it down while also taking out smaller threats like Zorua or Rowlet. It can be very good for sniping damage onto a smaller Pokemon before it has the chance to evolve up. Espeon GX was typically paired with both Garbodors from the era. First, we have the infamous Garbotoxin Garbodor, whose ability shuts down all other abilities in play, so long as there's a Pokemon tool attached, usually Floatstone, to give Garbodor free retreat. Then there's the Trashalanche Garbodor, who does 20 damage for each item card in your opponent's discard pile. So the idea of the deck is to set up with Espeon GX and apply early pressure, then sweep the game with a heavy Trashalanche while inflicting ability lock. It is a tough deck to play against, so let's check out round 2 of the 2017 North American International Championship format hosted by PokeStats. Andrew Scott is going to play first in our first game of this series. Opens Tapu Lele GX to my Turtonator GX, and I'm pretty stoked about this opening hand. I've got a double colorless ready for the Turtonator GX in the active, and I remember from my experience at 2017 Nats that Turtonator GX was a pretty good opener versus a lot of decks. It applies pressure with Shell Trap and makes it so that your opponent really has to think twice about whether or not they want to bite into that Turtonator GX, taking 8 damage counters if they inflict damage on a Turtonator GX after a Shell Trap is a lot. It really softens up these Pokemon GX for a swift KO afterwards. So we're going to see Andrew go for a Tapu Lele and a Bridget play here in order to set up his Pokemon. And something that Andrew can do to play around this Turtonator GX and its nasty Shell Trap is use Espeon GX's Divide GX. So that's a strategy we're going to see from Andrew here. Set up with a quick Espeon GX. There is the Energy Evolution Eevee, which is legal for this format, as we see Eevee coming out into play with that turn 1 Bridget. It's got a double colorless energy on it, so no energy evolution. If Andrew had a Psychic, he could evolve that Eevee up instantly, but I'm pretty stoked. I've got the DCE, I've got a Turtonator, and I probably don't want to use Professor Sycamore and discard all of these cards in my hand. I also know that Andrew Scott is playing a Garbodor deck at this point pretty clearly, so I want to be hyper aware of how many item cards I am putting into the discard pile, as I don't want to power up his Garbodor's Trashalanche attacks. I get a Zorua, which is nice. However, if Andrew is able to get that Psychic Energy and a Floatstone, he can't just Divide GX my Zorua while playing around Shell Trap, which is pretty annoying. I don't really have any other backup plans though, so I think just benching the Zorua and going for a Shell Trap is going to be my best bet for this turn 1. And Turtonator GX does get to inflict its 20 damage with Shell Trap. Looks like I might also decide to go with the Tapu Lele GX here, Wonder Tag. This is a heads up play for sure, since I don't actually have a backup supporter in my hand ready to go for next turn. Since Andrew has a couple of Trubbishes down, it is certainly conceivable that Andrew could get a turn 2 Garbotoxin lock, turning off all of my abilities. So I want to make sure that I get that supporter card into my hand with Tapu Lele GX's Wonder Tag before the next turn comes around, so that I don't get locked out of that ability if Andrew's got a very good turn ahead. Looks like Andrew's going to play an Ultra Ball here, probably going for a Garbodor or an Espeon GX who we discard. Hex Maniac. Hex Maniac is not really a card that I am going to be looking to use in this matchup, since Andrew's going to be turning off abilities as it is, which really slows down my deck. Usually I want to rely on not only Tapu Lele GX with its Wonder Tag ability, but also Zoroark. And we're getting a good look at that Espeon GX there. He's got the Psychic Energy for it as well. If he finds a Float Stone, he can retreat the Tapu Lele GX. If he finds another tool, he can turn off my abilities with the Garbotoxin Garbodor. If there's anything that I have going for me so far, it's just that I don't have many item cards in the discard pile. So I'm not boosting up his damage output at all. And also, since Andrew Scott started with a Tapu Lele GX, had to use another Tapu Lele GX turn 1 to bridge it for his setup Pokemon, and then benched another one for draw this turn. There are 3 Tapu Lele GXs in play, which means that his bench is completely jammed, which really opens up the door for me to be able to hit huge numbers with Zoroark's Mind Jack. So I'm really trying to get multiple Zoroarks into play. I'm excited about the fact that Andrew Scott has all of these Pokemon out, and Garbotoxin is live now. As we can see, Andrew had to put that Choice Band on to the Garbodor. It's not ideal. Usually you want Float Stone on Garbodor, but Choice Band will do in a pinch. And this list that I'm playing, this Zoroark Drampa list, does not play any Field Blower. So now that that ability lock is established, I have no way to remove that ability lock outside of actually KOing the Garbodor. And one of the reasons that I didn't play any Field Blower in my list is because you can kind of just trudge through this matchup and it doesn't really matter. At this point, I have no need for the Team Magma's Secret Base because I have already dealt some damage to my bench Pokemon. So if I want to attach, or start attacking with a Drampa GX, I'm going to have some damaged Pokemon on the bench to ramp that pressure up. And we see just another Shell Trap from my Turtonator GX, but with a potential incoming Divide GX, Andrew Scott could take out my benched Zoroark here and make it so that I have to Sycamore this Zoroark break. I really would love the opportunity to evolve this Zoroark break into play. Getting Zoroark breaks out against this deck is really tough for the Espeon Garb deck to deal with. As you can see, I am very much able to play without getting too many item cards in the discard pile. But Zoroark GX, or not Zoroark GX, Zoroark also resists Psychic. So with both the Zoroark and the Zoroark break, having that Psychic resistance means that they're going to be dealing 20 less damage to my Zoroarks. And that makes it pretty tough to knock out. It means that I need additional items in the discard pile for those Trash Lanch Garbodors to be able to take their knockouts. Now, this is a perfect opportunity for Andrew Scott to use this Divide GX, playing around Turtonator's Shell Trap, and as we can see, decides to just go for the Zorua while softening up the Turtonator in the active. I'm actually really thankful for that. They didn't just put all 8 damage counters onto my benched Zoroark, and now I have a Zoroark break, which means that I have a bunch of different options. Now, I wish I could stand in and attack this Espeon with my Zoroark break. I could deal a lot of damage that way. I could copy its Psychic attack. Psychic deals 60 plus 30 more for each energy, so it would be 369 plus 60 plus the Choice Band. That would be 180 damage. But instead, we're just going for the Shell Trap instead. Now, Andrew doesn't have a lot of great options to play around this Turtonator GX. Either he will Lysander or he has to hit in to Shell Trap. That's pretty much it. Now that Andrew has used his Divide GX to play around the Shell Trap's just that gift that keeps on giving. Like, at some point, Andrew's going to have to find a solution to the Turtonator GX, and the Turtonator GX is just giving me time. As we can see, I'm not actually super successful at setting up a bunch of Zoroarks here. I did lose a Zorua to the Divide GX, so I don't have a very established board position. It's just a Turtonator and one Zoroark break. But as we can see, my board position is better than Andrew's at this point. I don't have all of these Tapu Lele GXs weakening my board state. And it looks like Andrew Scott actually just goes for the confusion on my Zoroark break. And this is devastating. Goes for the Psybeam confusion. And since I had committed that choice band to my Zoroark break, I now don't have a way to retreat my Zoroark break. I could sack the DCE and retreat the Zoroark. That feels really bad though. That's a huge waste of resources, and I don't want to have to get behind on an energy attachment in order to do that. I love that I have the rescue stretcher here. I'm going to put that Zorua back down onto the bench. But with the Floatstone in hand, it feels really bad. I don't want to retreat. I want to go for this knockout. If I hit this heads, this Espeon GX goes down. It's a huge momentum swing for me if I am able to get this knockout on the confusion flip. I'm thinking about going for a Kukui, thinking about going for an N. I could Lysander. There's no real need to Lysander. I want to knock out this Espeon. I'm considering even Lysandering the Garbodor with a choice band, as I don't really know what outs Andrew has to retreating a Garbodor with a choice band. I'm assuming he would have to field blower his own Garbodor, and after a lot of deliberation, I just decided to go for the 50-50, and it bites me. If it's so bad. I flip a Tails, I eat 30 damage off of the confusion, and now that momentum just goes straight to Andrew Scott. So there's a pretty, pretty heavy risk to reward ratio there, and I think that if I hit that, I mean, I just seal this game away if I knock that Espeon GX out. So that's a calculated risk for me. I'm only sacrificing a non-GX Pokemon on my side, and still, this Espeon GX doesn't actually have anything great to do to this Zoroark break. Psybeam is very powerful in this situation. I could have retreated with the DCE and gone for another Shell Trap, but what's to say that, then at that point, maybe I get confused again or Lysandered again, and that would just be really annoying. So I decided to go for the knockout. Big whiff there. And I'm not really worried too much about Andrew's board state at this point. And I'm actually really thankful that Andrew goes for the field blower there, knocking the choice band off of my Zoroark break, because now it lives through that psychic with 10 hit points remaining, which is huge. And that Divide GX has already been used, so I'm not really worried about the Zoroark break being cleaned up at all. And I have the Floatstone, so I could just retreat this Zoroark break, go into my Zoroark on the bench now, and just take that Mind Jack knockout. And I get to conserve this Zoroark break. So a huge swing of momentum there, and Andrew just gave me that with the field blower. I didn't have a way to retreat that Zoroark break and attack with this Zoroark with that choice band on the Zoroark break. And of course, it seems like a good idea to just have your choice band down, but then of course, it gets Lysandered up and confused. I didn't really see that route coming, and I did get temporarily punished for it, but we're gonna have the opportunity to play out of it here with a big Mind Jack knockout on the Espeon GX. 160 damage, full bench on my opponent's side of the field, and we get to take those two prizes, sprinting ahead in this match without suffering any major casualties on my side. That Zoroark break hanging in there with just 10 hit points left is phenomenal, and you'll find that that kind of thing happens a lot in this format. Now, when Andrew Scott has to just go up and energy drive my Zoroark for 80 damage, not even a knockout, and the energy drive on Tapu Lele GX ignores weakness and resistance, why it hits for a full 80 damage. It goes through the resistance, but still short of a knockout. And at this point, I know I'm out-tempoing Andrew. All I have to do is be aware of how many items I have in my own discard pile. Make sure that I don't ever play into that Trashalanche Garbodor that I see he is prepping there on his bench. He's got the Trubbish, and I'm just counting, quick count, how many items do I have in the discard pile? Still not many, and I'm pretty confident at this point that I'm going to be able to tempo and trade here. I think I have, what, 4 or 5 items in my discard pile, so not a ton. And with Andrew only having one Pokemon on his, or one backup attacker for that matter, on his own bench with one Trubbish, I'm feeling pretty confident. Now, I don't have access to my abilities. I can't use Shaman. I can't use Instruct on a Rangaroo either. I decide to use this Ultra Ball, and I really need to weigh each item use a lot, right? I decide to go for the Drampa, and we're just going to let this Rescue Stretcher go as well and decide to get into a new hand. And I decide to do that because I know I need to get another energy dropped, and it's worth it at this point to play those items and just get those into the discard pile. I still am in a situation where Drampa's not in one-hit KO range of Trashalanche yet. So I want to get some energy onto Drampa and get myself in a situation where I can clean up a bunch of Pokemon on his side of the field for KO. Since I only have 2 more GX prizes to go, I know my route to win is going to be to 2-hit KO this Tapu Lele GX in the active, and then Lysander Gust one of these Leles on the bench. And as we can see, he's got that 70 damage Tapu Lele just sitting there on the bench already. I know Drampa can clean it up. Turtonator at this point is kind of done its job already by softening some things up at the beginning. I don't really need Turtonator to do anything else. So Turtonator's kind of just chilling here. But if I do find a Choice Band, getting to Shell Trap the Tapu Lele GX for knockout would be pretty enticing. That being said, there's not a great way to retreat the Turtonator afterwards. Now I have Teammates here activated. Great card. Just if one of my Pokemon was knocked out during the last turn, I can go get myself any 2 cards out of my deck, and I'm pretty sure I'm just going for double DCE. I've already got Lysander double Versus Seeker in my hand, which is all I need to clean this game up, since all I need to do is knock out these final 2 Tapu Leles. All I need is the energy. I've got the board state, I've got the Pokemon. My opponent has a fully loaded bench. They're completely playing in to Zoroark's Mind Jack attack here. I decide to just play down the Float Stone. I think I just want as many items down as I can, since I don't actually need anything other than energies and Lysander in order to close this game out. Getting another Versus Seeker off the prizes, very good for me as well. Just increases my odds of being able to draw out of an N, which I'm assuming is coming down the line here. You can always anticipate that there's going to be an N to 2 scenario. So I want to make sure that I have as thin of a deck as possible to be able to close out the game on this damaged Tapu Lele GX that we see in the active. Now, Andrew Scott doesn't have a backup attacker yet. With the Trubbish and the Eevee, I'm assuming that I'm going to be seeing maybe a Trashalanche Garbodor, maybe an Espeon GX come into play here, but it's possible that Andrew doesn't have it in his hand. And I think we're just going to see an Acid Spray. This hand might have been just that bad that there was nothing playable out of this hand. Sure enough, it's Acid Spray, and I've got game in hand. Lysander on the Tapu Lele GX, wasting no time bringing that thing into the active position. Choice Band, Mind Jack for game, and we'll go to game 2. Zoroark's just leading the way against that fully loaded bench. Game 2, Andrew's going to choose to go first, opens Trubbish to my Zorua, and I have a pretty decent opening hand with an Ultra Ball and an N. Love to open with N against the Trashalanche Garbodor decks because you don't want to have too many item cards in the discard pile. Having to open Sycamore hands is really tough because a lot of times you'll have to Sycamore cards like Rescue Stretcher or Versus Seeker, cards you can't even get any use out of on the first turn of the game. So opening N is usually ideal. As we see, I got a Tapu Lele GX here off the draw. And Andrew has a pretty similar opening to last time. A couple of Trubbishes and an Eevee with a double colorless on it. Now I have Big Boss Turtonator GX again, and we'll see if I decide to put it into play. It ended up kind of working out for me last time. However, the Divide GX I found very annoying. Divide GX could perfectly play around Turtonator. I think I would rather get an energy onto Drampa and really see if I can lead the way with a Drampa GX this game, because Drampa's just such an ideal starter. You can go with the Righteous Edge, remove the special energy from Espeon, and then deal big one-hit KO numbers with your Berserk. think I'm going to decide to put Turtonator down. You know what? Turtonator has not led me astray yet. It won me my series versus Pablo, and it was effective at softening up my opponent's Pokemon there in game 1. I decide to just go for a double colorless or something like that, and I end up drawing pretty dead here. Almost nothing off of this opening hand. I have the Darkness energy. I could commit that to Tapu Lele, maybe. I could commit it to a Zorua on the bench. Could eventually use that to copy an attack with Foul Play, Zoroark, Break, but that's a couple of turns down the line at the very least. Now, I'm in a completely dead hand, but all hope is not lost. If there's something that you know about 2017 format, it's that your opponent can always end you out of a dead hand. So, you know, no need for poker face. We're playing on the Pokemon trading card game online. My opponent could not see whether or not I am sweating this dead hand here. And odds are I'm probably going to get End. N and Professor Sycamore are the two most popular draw supporters in this format. So if it's not Professor Sycamore, it will be End. So my hand will get shuffled to 6 again. Looks like Andrew's got another very strong start. Gets the Espeon GX into play. It's got the Psychic Energy and the DC on it, ready to divide GX, and a Garbotoxin Garbodor. Choice Band on the Espeon GX and a big N. Sure enough, I'm going to get to see a new hand, so I'm definitely excited about that, as that last hand I was in was not good. This hand is much better. At least I've got an Ultra Ball and a Drampa GX. Still not great, as I do not have a Versus Seeker or a Draw supporter. And looks like the Espeon GX is just going to go in for that Divide GX. Now, what's interesting is that now that Andrew has used the Divide GX, right, knocked out one of my Zoruas, now I have an opportunity to potentially start using Shell Trap. I think I decided to go for the Moonlight Madness here. So this is interesting. Inflicting Confusion. Last time, Andrew Scott was able to use Confusion against me and really disrupted my Zoroark Break. Now, not an often used attack, but Zorua does actually have a usable, this is the correct Zorua to use because of Moonlight Madness. Now, I do not have any Float Stones. I can't use my Tapu Lele GX's Wonder Tag because of the Garbotoxin lock, and I go for the Moonlight Madness, decide to inflict confusion. I bench the Drampa GX so that I could potentially use Big Wheel GX to draw out of this if the Zorua ends up getting knocked out. And I know since the Espeon GX has a Choice Band on it, that Andrew's gonna have a challenging time retreating this Espeon GX. So the Moonlight Madness feels really good. 50% chance this Espeon ends up damaging itself. If it ends up damaging itself, I could maybe aggress with a Zoroark next turn. I could retreat, Shell Trap, I could retreat, Righteous Edge. There's a lot of different things I can do. If this Espeon stays here and stays confused, and this was, Andrew Scott just goes for it. Just goes for the attack through the confusion and commits another energy to the Espeon GX. Maybe because Andrew decides that he may want to retreat the Espeon eventually, but with the Espeon remaining confused in the active, I am trying to figure out, okay, what is my route forward here? This thing's got 4 energy on it. There's a lot of energy invested. Even though I'm technically down in prizes at this point, Andrew Scott's taken 2 prizes. I feel confident. I don't think that he actually has a great board presence, and his active Espeon GX is confused. And I don't really have hardly any items in my discard pile either. So I'm really confident about my state here, even though I have an absolutely garbage hand. I have pretty much nothing going on. I have not given Andrew anything. I don't have any items in my discard pile. I've got a lot of powerful Pokemon in play. And if I can take this 4 energy Espeon down, which I'm going to be dealing increased damage to because of that extra energy attachment last turn, which I think was just put there so that the Espeon could maybe have an easier time retreating on the following turn. I only have 1 item card in my discard pile, so Trashalanche is doing effectively nothing to me. Because of his own Garbotoxin ability lock, I know that he can't just bench an Eevee and go into another Espeon GX. You know, Eevee does have that energy evolution ability, allowing it to instantly spring up from an Eevee to an Espeon, but in order for that to work, abilities need to be live. So we do see just a bench Tapu Lele GX, and you're gonna see this a lot in this format. This is one of my favorite things about this format as well, is that Tapu Lele GX actually just gets in there and does a lot of heavy lifting. And there's a lot of math, number crunching, trying to figure out, okay, you know, what kind of scraps can Tapu Lele GX clean up? What kind of numbers can Tapu Lele set up for a knockout later on? Now, I find this play a little bit confusing as well. Andrew decides to Field Blower his own Choice Band and put a Float Stone onto the Espeon in order to give it free retreat. I think I would have rather just seen the Choice Band stay on the Espeon GX, and then it's only got a retreat of 1, so you could just retreat one of those bonus psychic energies off of the Espeon GX. Andrew goes for the big Professor's Sycamore there, draws 7 new cards, and is presumably looking for a double colorless energy for his Tapu Lele GX on the bench in order to take a big bite out of my active Tapu Lele GX, dealing 110 damage with the Choice Banded Energy Drive. So I'm really crossing my fingers and just hoping no double colorless. Sure enough, no double colorless. Justice is served. Finally flips a tails on Confusion, inflicting damage to itself. And having already won game 1, at this point, I've got some wind in my sails, and I'm really feeling confident about my ability to win this game, despite the fact my hand is still dead. But I'm feeling a little bit better here. I only have 1 item card in my discard pile, so I know his damage output is so small at this point. And I could bite and use another Ultra Ball. I think I'm going to decide to do that, discarding the Tapu Lele and the Oricorio, just because I want to get a Zoroark established. I know that I need some other attacker to have on my side of the field, and taking 2 cards off my prizes here, I'm pretty confident that I'll find something, be it a Versus Seeker, a Supporter, double colorless. Sure enough, I do find a double colorless, and that's all I really think that I need at this point in order to maintain momentum in this game. Now that I have another energy, worst comes to worst, I could always retreat into Drampa GX and use that big wheel GX attack. And sure enough, Andrew whiffs the DCE last turn, but gets the DCE off the top deck, presumably, since he went for the Confusion attack on Espeon last turn. Gets the double colorless for his Tapu Lele, and this Tapu Lele is going to be able to swing into my Tapu Lele for 110 damage. Much better that it happened this turn than last turn. Getting that bonus turn because of the Confusion was huge, and we could see that Zorua with the Moonlight Madness really put in its work and kind of dictated the outcome of this match by inflicting Andrew's biggest Pokemon GX with Confusion, and it didn't have a lot of mobility options. He didn't have a backup attacker built up. So we're going to see a Sycamore from Andrew and an attack with Tapu Lele GX, and I've got some options now. I could either go up with Drampa and Righteous Edge, maybe set this Tapu Lele up for a big knockout. I've got a Float Stone too, so I think that might be a reasonable play. I could Float Stone the Tapu Lele GX, save the double colorless on the Tapu Lele GX. That way I have a kind of backup attacker to be able to swing in for the remaining KO here after maybe I soften it up with something. I could also soften up with the Zoroark. That is certainly an option. I'm considering saving the Float Stone because I'm like, am I really going to attack with this damaged Tapu Lele again? But as you've seen, I haven't really played hardly any cards. So I'm in a sketchy spot, and I really need to make the most out of all of the resources that I have. So I decided to go with the Shell Trap, and I think that this is a fine play. I keep the Float Stone so that now I can retreat the Turtonator into something else. And I know that if I want to, I can always use Ultra Ball. I can get myself Zoroark Break, attack with the Darkness Energy there. But we do see Andrew's going to play this Lysander and decide to knock out my Tapu Lele instead. And I'm fine with this play. I mean, you can only really Lysander so many times. Andrew is going to go down to 2 prizes remaining. Really close match, but still, I have given him no items in the discard pile. There are only 2 items in the discard pile, so that Trash Lance Garbodor on his bench is doing effectively no damage, just 40. And he doubles down, putting the second double colorless onto this Tapu Lele GX. So now I know, okay, I haven't done much this game, but all I have to do is take care of this Tapu Lele GX, and I am home free. So I'm pretty confident at this point the Tapu Lele GX is going down, but I still have some options, right? And this is one of my other just things that I love about this format is that I have been on the ropes all game. In fact, all I've played is 1 copy of N, but I'm still in this game. I'm using my resources well. I'm routing things really well. I'm maximizing every single energy drop that I get. I'm using all of my resources. Like we saw, I used Moonlight Madness on Zorua in order to take a big swing turn. And I am certainly still in this game, despite the fact that I still have 37 cards remaining in my deck, and I have played almost nothing. Just in time, we top deck the Verse Seeker. All right, I can end my opponent to 2. That certainly makes a big difference here, being able to put that pressure on. And I decided to put the Float Stone on to Turtonator because I'm like, okay, I'm going to soften up this Tapu Lele. I'm going to end to 2. And then I want to sweep with Drampa. So I decide to put the double colorless back into my deck because the goal is to soften up Tapu Lele. And then I'm on a 2-turn clock because assuming that I'm able to find a double colorless somewhere down the line, I find 2 here. I can now Shell Trap, retreat, and then start using Berserk if one of these Pokemon takes damage. So if my opponent passes, that's fine because that means that I buy myself more time to get deeper into this game. If they bite into the Turtonator, then not only do they take 8 damage counters in return, they set up Drampa GX's Berserk to be able to swing for 150 damage. And I know that there is nothing past this Tapu Lele GX on my opponent's side of the field. It's nothing. It's just a Garbodor who's dealing like 60 damage and a Trubbish, and that's it. There's no other backup attackers in sight. I've limited their hand to 2. They decide to just go even deeper onto the Tapu Lele GX, trying to hit 1-hit KO numbers. So now I'm scared, right? Because there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 with the choice band very close. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. In fact, my opponent is 1 energy away from 1-hit KOing my Turtonator. So I am very concerned at this point. If Andrew is able to find a single energy for this Tapu Lele GX, he's going to be able to take a 1-hit KO on my Turtonator GX and win the game. So I correctly decide to, I think, go in with the Zoroark here. I can soften up this Tapu Lele even further, and then once he takes a knockout on the Zoroark, then maybe I can finish up the Tapu Lele with a Shell Trap or with a Drampa, but I definitely need to go in with the Zoroark here and sacrifice that because my opponent still has 2 prizes remaining. So he can knock out the Zoroark and I still have a path to victory with my opponent still having 1 prize remaining. I will not bench another non-GX Pokemon after this Zoroark goes down. And Andrew has to know this. And this is one of the most painful parts about this kind of match here is that Andrew knows this is a big N, and I end up finding my other double colorless. That's great. Andrew knows that knocking out this Zoroark is not going to get him any closer to victory, but he has to do it. So he's only got 1 prize left, but I've got 2 gigantic Pokemon GX who are very far from being KO. Turtonator's got free retreat, so I'm going to promote the Turtonator. I've got the double colorless. I know I have knockout. And I'm going to eye up my resources here real quick. And I actually have a brilliant play. I love this. I have the Professor Kukui in my hand. So I can actually Shell Trap and knock out this Tapu Lele GX and move on to just 2 prizes remaining myself, which is going to do huge things for my momentum because then if my opponent hits into my Turtonator, they power up my Berserk, and then I'm able to just Berserk through the rest of the game. So I see the Kukui play, and I'm going to Shell Trap for 40 damage, putting my opponent in a very bad spot, right? If you bite into the Turtonator, you take 8 damage counters. If you don't bite into the Turtonator, then you give me more time to build up a game-winning board position. So I almost disconnect here, and I'm like, oh my gosh, please don't disconnect. If you've noticed that the gameplay is not quite as crisp, it's because I'm recording from my old 2011 iMac from home. Thank you, 2011 iMac from home, for not disconnecting there. Beautiful. We take the Shell Trap knockout with the Professor Kukui, dealing 20 extra damage. Perfect numbers to be able to take that knockout. My opponent's got 2 Trash Lance Garbodors, but I don't have many items in my discard pile at this point. This is all my opponent has, right? And this is actually a really big deal here, because my opponent could theoretically take a 2-hit knockout. I'm counting how many items I have. Let's see if I go back and look one more time. So, yeah, dealing 80 damage. I have 4 items in my discard pile. That is almost none, right? So at this point in the game, I decide to Lysander up this Garbodor here, and I'm going to take the knockout on the Garbodor without the tool on it, because my opponent had a win condition. They could have attached Choice Band to this Garbodor and then knock out my Turtonator, right? So now they still have a win condition, but that win condition is much harder to obtain, because now they have a Float Stone on this Garbodor, and I know this Garbodor is damage locked at 80 damage. Since I just played my Lysander, I didn't play any other tool cards. Now there are a couple ways my opponent can play out of that. If they Field Blower maybe my Float Stone, then they put it so that they're dealing 100 damage, still 10 damage short of knocking out my Turtonator GX on the bench. But previously, before I went for the Lysander knockout on that toolless Garbodor, my opponent just needed Choice Band Lysander, and it would have been game. Now they need a 3-card combination for game. Now they need Field Blower, Choice Band, Lysander, and that 3-card combination, you have to play to your outs, right? So I'm hoping that my opponent doesn't have all of that. Clearly they don't. They're suiting up this Tapu Lele GX, and I'm hoping that they don't have an N. They're putting the Oricorio down. Oricorio, with its Revelation Dance attack, is really good for being able to set up some checkmate scenarios, and an N to 1. So I am just holding my breath. Please, please help me get out of this situation. Energy Drive, perfect play here, softening up the Drampa, and I need a way out. This is a nail biter for sure. I have N as my only draw card in my hand. I'm dealing 150 damage to the Tapu Lele GX. I'm just one Choice Band short of being able to take it. I see my route though. I'm like, okay, so without the Choice Band, I have to go back into Turtonator, and I have to Shell Trap again. And fortunately, I'm hoping off the end of 1 that my opponent does not have a way to knock out my Turtonator. I still have only played, I think, 8 items? So I don't have 10 items in the discard pile. I know that the Garbodor on my opponent's bench is only dealing so much damage. It's only dealing 80 damage. With the Field Blower, it would deal 100, so it's still short. So I don't think off an end of 1, my opponent's going to be able to knock out the Turtonator. Now, if they had Field Blower, that would be bad. I wouldn't be able to retreat the Turtonator. So I'm really hoping for no Field Blower as well. But if my opponent doesn't have Field Blower and they can't knock out the Turtonator, then I just have checkmate on board with the Drampa GX and its Berserk attack for 150. Now that the Tapu Lele GX has been softened up, has 20 damage on it, that's just checkmate. So we've been able to walk this game back from the brink of defeat. I played almost no cards at the beginning of the game, but with some really heads-up routing, we were able to just muscle this game back. And I'm looking at Andrew here. He's only got 6 cards left in his deck, only 2 cards in his hand right now. 4 cards in deck, 2 cards in hand, 6 cards left at his disposal. And if he doesn't have game here, then that's just checkmate. And we were able to just wrangle that game back with some really heads-up play. We didn't play into Trash-a-Lanche. We were very conservative with our items. We were very deliberate with all of our energy drops. And it looks like they just have the second Psychic now with that revelation that one of those cards is Psychic Energy. I'm very confident that Andrew does not have a win condition, has to Trash-a-Lanche there for just 80 damage, eats into the Shell Trap, and gives me the game, conceding through just eating the Shell Trap damage. And Turtonator is the MVP, 750 damage dealt. Turtonator GX taking it all the way. Really good games to my second round opponent there, Andrew Scott. It was a pleasure playing you, and those games were really exciting. And that's when I knew during my tournament run for this 2017 North American International Championships retro format tournament that this was one of my favorite formats that I have ever played. It was during that set I was like, wow, I mean, what a great match. And I feel like there's just so much comeback potential. Each of your plays really makes a difference in the outcome of the match. And it was really exciting getting to kind of just bring that match back from the brink of defeat and taking the win there 2-0 against Espeon Garb felt really good. So Drampa GX Zoroark continuing to show its stuff in this tournament. The Turtonator GX continuing to get some airtime as well. Even winning the game with the shell trap damage was very exciting. If you're interested in playing some old format tournaments, PokeStats is going to be hosting many more. I'll link the Discord to the PokeStats Discord in the description below. Also, make sure to check out FullGripGames.com if you're looking to build any of these retro format decks. They are just as fun in paper cards as they are on the Pokemon Trading Card Game Online. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, make sure to check out FullGripCodes.com for instant PTCGO code delivery. I'll be doing round 3 here shortly for the YouTube audience, so thank you all so much for watching the video. Make sure to like the video, sub to the channel, ring that bell, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.